Excuse me everyone. Good morning pala. So for today, what we'll be moving on with your module 3, which is the male and female face. So if you have yung sa may PDF file, which I just sent, I guess, yesterday, you can use that one as reference. Kasi for the majority of this part, I'll just be focusing on the demonstration, not necessarily the module. So yung purpose nun is for you to kind of like use this demonstration as well as the module to further understand how we're going to go about with the process of creating a male and a female face. So for today, we'll be focusing first on the differences between a male and a female face. Pangalawa is that I'll be doing a demonstration on the male face front view, and if we have enough time, we'll be doing the female face. Pero kung wala, we'll just be skipping on ahead. But essentially, they have their own differences, but essentially, the steps, the foundations are pretty much the same. The proportions are pretty much the same. There are just some few differences. So, that will be pointed out firstly before we move on to the actual demonstration. So for this one, let me just first clarify yung mga differences in the male and the female face. So first, what is disclaimer muna? So we have a lot of differences that you can see right here. So for the male and then the female face, and then here you have your different criteria. So for the different criteria, actually half of them are just the ones that you see realistically. So if you compare a male face to a female face, realistically, only around half of them are quite accurate. The rest are more of towards a cartoony side. So more of comics, semi-realism, Japanese Western animation. So yung mga ganun, most of them are more of exaggeration. So if you can see here can be exaggerated. Most of these ones are used within a term or within the realm of comics, cartoon, animation, and so on and so forth. So it makes it seem a lot more feminine or masculine, so to speak, so that there would be a lot more difference. Pangalawa is, of course, it is possible for you to have some features that are considered as feminine sa may masculine na character nyo or sa may male na character ninyo. That's quite fine, and vice versa. So ito, it's just sabihin natin stereotypically masculine or feminine. But if you think na you would like to add more feminine or masculine features to the other gender, so to speak, you can do that as long as yung mga main foundations natin are still there. So you can have a more structured jawline for a female. That's quite possible. However, if you want to kind of up your chances, kasi a lot of us are beginners, it would be much better for us to kind of stick more towards the stereotypes o kaya naman more of the standards, so to speak, of the one that is stated right here. So I'll just be focusing on these ones, and I'll just be pointing out the primary differences and then the secondary differences, which are the ones that you can exaggerate. So pinakauna is more on the face shape. So for your male characters and for your female characters, of course, pwede nyo siyang pag-interchangein, pero usually for your masculine face or a male face, you tend to have more of an angular facial structure. And that's a theme that you would see in a lot of these differences. If you were to describe a masculine face, you can kind of describe it as more angular. For a female, it's a little bit more rounded. So as you can see right here, I tried to exaggerate it in the module, wherein you can see right now that the angles of the face are very much, you can very much see the angles. It was even seen, or you can even see like cheekbones and then yung chin medyo na exaggeration ng konti, whereas for a female face, it's totally rounded, so you don't really see a lot of differences in the face shape, probably except for the chin. So you can do something like that. As I have stated, it can be interchanged, and of course these types of standards or stereotypes can also be translated into other things. So like for example, if you want to create an older female character, it might be wiser for you to create a more angular shape since you tend to focus more on the bone structure. Whereas if you have Like let's say if you want a younger character, then you might want to have a more rounded, more youthful shape like this. So to make it kind of youthful, so to speak. Next one naman is the lips. So that's the secondary one. Tendency is that you would see lips in male or masculine characters to be much thinner compared to that of the female or the feminine characters. And then again, marami siyang factors, like let's say particularly the race. So you tend to see, sabihin natin, mga Europeans, they tend to have thinner lips, whereas for sub-Saharan Africans and even like let's say here in the Asian countries, we tend to have thicker lips. So that's one factor. Pero usually kasi masculine characters tend to have thinner lips and then your female characters tend to have fuller lips. So you might want to draw the female's lips either bigger o kaya naman more detailed. So as you can see right here for the male, hindi masyadong na-detail yung surrounding or yung shape ng lip mismo. So what are some other things that you can essentially exaggerate? So the first one is the eyebrows. So yung eyebrows kasi natin, this is not necessarily something that is genetic. It's more or less a beauty standard. So for your males, they tend to have unkempt eyebrows. So like let's say the shape is more of a natural shape like this, yung blocky na to. And then for your female, because of beauty standards, you tend to have this thicker one out towards the center, and then it becomes thinner and thinner towards the end. Next one for the eyes. Essentially, the eyes are exactly the same size. Walang pinagkaiba in terms of the size. However, if you really want to exaggerate how masculine or how feminine it is possible for you to enlarge the female ones a little bit, and you can add eyelashes to make it look a bit more feminine. Whereas for your masculine one, you might want to make it a bit thinner, a bit longer actually, in terms of the width, to kind of make it steely look and more masculine. For the nose, essentially the same thing. For the male, if you would like to, probably you might want to add more detail, yung full detail natin. So as you can see right here, I have placed a little bit of the nose bridge. For your female, if you really want to exaggerate it, you can make it a bit smaller than it's supposed to be. And then of course the hairstyle is there. The neck pala, that's one thing that I forgot to mention. So for the neck of your male, it tends to be a bit more masculine. Whereas for your muscular pala rather. Whereas for your female, it tends to just be rounded, something like this. So those are just some differences. It really focuses more on the on the rendering. Wala masyado on proportions. Certainly not a lot of differences in terms of basic shapes. Meron siyang differences in terms of proportions, like let's say small differences in the eyes, nose, and even like let's say the length of the face. Pero essentially they're quite similar. So the steps that I'll be showing towards your male face can be something that can be applied towards your female face. So with this one, I'll be starting off with a male face first, and then afterwards, if we have the time, we can do a female face. So for this one, as I've stated, I'll be using digital kasi para makita nyo siya, it's much better if I show it digital. It is possible for me to show it traditionally, but the pencil might not show through. So at least ito medyo obvious siya. So for this one, I'll be using some layers to very much illustrate kung ano yung mga basic shapes, ano yung mga proportions. For you guys, you don't really have to do this. It's just a way for us to better understand how the proportions would actually work. So to start off first, I would create a circle. So itong circle na to, it doesn't really have to be perfect. Just has to look, it just has to make sure na pinakauna your width and your height is the same. And then of course, it should be generally round. And another one is the space. So like let's say if ito yung space mo for creating the male face, try to have the space of the circle around like this, around 1/2 of the size. There should be a little bit of space on top so that you can add hair, and then a lot of space at the bottom, same size as this one. A lot more if necessary for your lower parts of the face. Next one is I'll be adding another layer ito for my proportions. So what I'll be doing next is that I'll be adding a horizontal line. So itong horizontal line na to, it's going to divide your circle into two equal parts. So this is a proportion thing. Another one is, next part is that I'll be measuring yung spacing ng lower half of the circle. Actually, pwede din yung upper half kasi they're essentially the same. Pero for the lower part so that it's easier. So what I'm going to do right here is that I'm going to find this measurement right here, hanggang dito. And then I'll be starting off from this measurement and then I'll be going down right here. So dapat parehas yung measurement natin. So to kind of illustrate my point, I'll try to create another layer tas para makikita nyo. So this is the proportion that I would like to have. Duplicate ko lang siya, move it a little bit. You can do something like this by like using your fingers. So you can use your fingers or your hand or your pencil or even an actual ruler to kind of check yung for you to kind of check yung measurements natin dito. But for this one, I'll just be showing it digitally para mas makita natin. So essentially, I'll be placing it at the very bottom of the circle. Dapat same measurement sila. So I'll be doing that one, and that is my I should have a marking right here. To make it easier for you, try to make a small marking right around here. So this will be the length of your face. So your face is essentially 1, 2, 3 na halves, 1.5 na parang circle na base natin dito. Next one is I'll be creating a straight vertical line towards the entire face, so to speak. So I'll be starting off from the circle and then pababa hanggang sa may base na nagawa ko dito. I can even extend it a little bit, pero that's not really necessary. So that's for that. Next one is I'll be moving again towards your proportions. So for your proportions, I'll try to create a small line right here. So let me just lower this down a little bit. So what I'm essentially doing is that I'll be creating a line right here. So this will serve as my jawline. So maliit lang siya. You can kind of make this a bit wider, but just make it quite small. So how small it is will really be up to you, actually. So you have that one right here. Next one, I forgot to mention pala, is that itong lower part natin na to, you have to divide this into two parts equally ulit. So you can just create a marking right here to kind of create that measurement. And then from that point on, I'll be creating my horizontal line here and then towards the left side. So you have this one right here. From that point on, I'll be creating my basic shapes. So from the basic shapes, magsa-start ako dito sa may gitna ng circle. So this first horizontal line that I've created right here. So I'll be starting right here and then I'll be ending right here sa may second horizontal line na ginawa ko. And the line that I'll be creating is a straight line. Straight diagonal line actually. So slightly diagonal siya. It is possible for you to just create something that's entirely straight na vertical. Pero in terms of aesthetic purposes, it might not look quite well. Kasi yung shape ng face natin is that it becomes thinner and thinner as it goes towards your chin. So with this one kind of helps. Next one is that I'll try to make this lower so that you can see it. Then from this point on, I'll be connecting this point up until this point. For a masculine face, personally, I would like to make it a bit longer, or the illusion of making it longer without actually making it longer. So it is technically possible for you to make it a bit longer, so you can have the chin right around here and then connect it as such. Pero for this one, I'll be sticking with the proportions. Instead, what I'll be doing is that instead of me starting right here, kung nasan yung horizontal line dito, I'll be starting a bit higher. Hindi siya yung super taas naman na pag ganito. Only just a little bit. And then, connect that one. You'll be notice, make sure na pantay sila, of course. So ito, you can just create a straight line. we can then again make it a bit curved later on pag nagre-render na tayo. So, here you have your face shape. So, that's how the face shape would look like. Now, we'll be moving on towards yung mga proportions ulit natin. So, for our proportions, we already have 3 horizontal lines right here. We'll be creating a few more. So, the first one is on the upper part right here, upper half of the circle. Hahatiin ko ulit yan, divide it into 2, and then create a horizontal line again. So, pwedeng ganyan. Next one is on the lower half of the circle right here. You'll be creating another half, and then hahanapin nyo ulit yung you'll be creating again a horizontal line. Then for this one is that sa may base ng circle natin, we'll be creating a horizontal line right here. So essentially you have one right here, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have a 6th one, pero the 6th one doesn't really have a proportion. So these horizontal lines actually stands for a certain type of proportions that we have. So they kind of help you guide kung nasa yung mga placement ng facial elements natin. So for the first one, for this first line right here, this is something which we call as your hairline. So hairline is essentially, you have of course your forehead. So from the start of your forehead, kung nasa nagsastart yung hair ninyo, that's your hairline. The second one right here is for your eyebrow. So this will be elaborated a little bit more. Third line is going to be the eyes, yung pinakagitna ng eyes natin. The fourth one is for the nose, though not exactly, a little bit more on that one again. And then the fifth one is the mouth. So kung nasaan yung opening ng mouth natin. So all of these ones, those are the placements. Even for the female, ganito yung placements niya. If you've made the chin a bit longer, nandito pa rin yung mouth. So medyo mag-extend lang yung chin a little bit further. So with that one, another important thing pala is that the measurements for these ones should essentially be the same. So there might be some instances that this one would be a bit bigger than this. That's quite okay kasi nga how our faces are proportioned are quite different. However, more or less, they should be quite similar. Pag masyadong malaki yung difference, then that would be quite a red flag. So with that one, we'll be starting off with the facial elements. So for your facial elements, I'll be starting off with the eyes first kasi the nose and the mouth are essentially dictated by the eyes. So with that one, let's start off on the third line where your eyes are. So yung size ng eyes ninyo is actually these measurements. So itong measurement na to, itong measurement na to, and so on. All of these ones are quite kind of like the same measurement. So what I'm going to do right here is that I'll be creating another layer. I'll make this a bit smaller. Then I'll try to use another color para mas makita natin. So what I'll be doing is that I'll be taking this measurement. So itong measurement na to, hahanapin ko yung gitna niya. And then what I'm going to do is that I'm going to rotate it. Then, going to be placing it towards the center of the line right here. So, using that one, I'll be creating, delete natin ito. So, that is where the center of my eyes are. So, if you were to remember, yung spacing between your eyes is equivalent to one eye. So what you can do is that you can essentially copy and paste this measurement right here. So do it on the right side, then do it on the left side. So again, make sure na yung proportions natin are quite similar. So if medyo may inconsistencies, that's quite alright. Probably we can change this one. Itong measurement natin, make this a bit shorter or a bit smaller so that pantay siya dito. So again, make sure na pantay ito, pantay silang lahat. So yung length ng eyeline natin should be around 4 to 5. 4 is the ideal one for cartoon. If you want something that's realistic, it should be 5. So this one is somewhat the in-between of that one. So this is not entirely one eye, so it's around half of it. pero it's not definitely just for eyes. So with that point, we'll be moving on to the basic shapes. So from this point on, you can kind of create yung circle natin. So probably, by the way, if you have some trouble creating yung length natin, so you have this height, this width right here, you might want to recreate the height as well right here. Then go towards your basic shapes, create your circle. Then use that same circle. Then copy that one. For now, I'll be creating first yung mga basic shapes natin so that it would be easier for us to put it all back later on. Kasi mga yun, baka isa-skip pa na lang siya. Next portion is that we'll be creating the nose. So yung limit ng nose natin should be within the middle of this eye level right here. So I'll be creating this one. I'll be extending this line right here up until the fourth line. Next, I'll be creating yung basic shapes from the nose. So for your nose right here, you might want to use the half of this one and then create your nose bridge. I mean your nose tip and then your nostrils right here. So this is something that I would like to focus on. Okay. So if you're going to notice, yung top ng ano natin, nung nose tip natin right here, that is the one that is touching your fourth line, which is your nose line right here. So it's not necessarily your nose would be right around here. That's too high. Medyo ibaba natin, so it should be right around here. Your nose typically should not exceed, so hindi dapat siya lalaki na parang yung nostrils natin would be exceeding. That would be too much. So it should only be right here. If you want to make your nose a bit smaller, that's also quite fine. So, a bit smaller, pag medyo nahati dito, that's also quite fine. So, that's for our nose. Next one for our mouth. So, yung sa may mouth natin, it's actually based on the eyes. So, ang gagawin natin sa may eyes, medyo, you can just kind of eyeball this if you would like to. Pero for me, I'll try to demonstrate it better. So, ang gagawin natin sa may eyes, let's try to divide this one. And then, on the left eye, yung right side niya, I'll be dividing this one into two. And then, on the right eye, left side, I'll be dividing it into two. So, dapat yung nasa gitna niya. And then, I'll be using that one to kind of reference my placement of the lips. So, yung sa may lips natin, it would usually be right around here. So it's this one. Then from that point on, I'll be dividing this one so that you would have 4 measurements. Then lastly, creating yung basic shapes natin. So in dalawang circles dito, then another circle up top. So with that one, you can essentially now create yung basic shapes natin. I mean, you can now create your rendering. One last thing pala for the eyebrow. So your eyebrow would be right around here, first point. Second point might be around here. Then the third point would be right around. That is for your eyes, nose, and your mouth. So for this one, I would like you to please refer to your module 2. Next portion is that we'll be creating other parts of the face, like your ears, your neck, and then your hairline, and then lastly the hair. So for the ears, first is that I'll be placing it right here. So I'll start off with the third line, so right around here. And then it should end around, it should start around here, and it should end towards the bottom of your nose. Dapat more or less no exceptions yet. It should always start at the eyes, third line. It should always end at the bottom of the nose, just below the fourth line right here. How you're going to create it is kind of like this shape, yung half heart shape natin na ganyan. So it's not overtly complicated. So you just have to make it as thin as possible. You don't really want to stick it out too much because if it sticks out, it doesn't really look quite natural. Then we can create yung sa may hairline. So yung sa may hairline natin will be create using I'll be using a green color kasi for your hair it's an entirely different thing. So let's start off first with your hairline. So yung sa may hairline natin, you would usually start at the very top right here, and then you will be creating the actual hairline that you would see that kind of makes up your forehead. So ang limitation niya is usually around where your eyebrows are. So hanapin ninyo yung eyebrow ninyo, kind of like create that measurement if you would need to. So your eyebrow is right around here, your other eyebrow is right around here. So my hairline would be this one. O kaya naman, what you can do is something which we call as a widow's peak. So yung widow's peak natin, it's like this small V shape. So parang meron kang maliit na V towards your top of the hair right here. So you can make it also a bit curved, pero as much as possible, do not go beyond the topmost line right here. Next portion is that we will be creating yung sa may baba. So what we'll just be doing is that you will just be creating a curved line going downwards up until the second line. Also notice how medyo parang palabas siya. So it's going this direction, not necessarily just going straight down. So it should be moving towards the outside of your face. And then the last part is that from this point, I will now be connecting it towards the ear. So for that one, I'll just be creating this small curved line again. Then curved line again. So if I were to isolate this one and this one, so it should more or less just look like this. So ganyan yung size ng hairline natin. Of course, this will not necessarily be noticed. It's just a foundation. So with that point, now we can start with the hair. So that's your hairline. Next point is that you will now be creating the origin of your hair. So yung origin ng hair natin, this is where your kind of like hair, where your hair comes from. And then every single strand of your hair will be going against the direction of this one. So it can either come in one of two ways. Pwede siyang point lang talaga, o kaya naman just a line like this. So for that one, pag line kasi, you tend to have like, parang may hati ka sa buhok. But if you just have yung dot, then it would usually be, it's just coming out of one point. So you don't really have that half of the hair. So if you have an origin of the hair right here, it should only be around this area. So it should not really pass towards the first line right here. So if the origin of your hair would be right around here, that's not really an origin of the hair. It's more of hati lang talaga siya. So with that one, every direction of your hair should be coming out of this line. So dapat yung hair natin hindi siya gaganon. It's not gonna come from the left side going towards the right side. So with this one, all of the origin should essentially come from that point. Next portion is that, reminder lang to, you can create a line like this, pero it's not really necessary, is that this part right here is the scalp of your hair. So yung scalp ng hair natin, that is where your hair is coming from. For you to make sure that your hair has volume, dapat yung hair natin should have a little bit of space in between your scalp as well as the actual placement of your hair. So, dapat may konting division na ganyan. So like let's say if your hair would be like sabihin natin yung normal na nakababa lang na buhok. So if your hair would be right around here, it would mean that your hair is flat. But if like let's say it starts from here, then pag ganun siya, then it would kind of give you the impression that you have a little bit more volume towards your hair. So if you're creating more masculine hairstyles, then probably you'll be going a bit higher than this one. Next portion is that we'll be creating yung hairstyle. So for the hairstyle, first off is of course you need to have your reference. So when you have your reference, it's good for you to have it referenced online. So if you can have a tab open, or if you have a hairstyle of choice, you might want to use that. So I'll just be quickly opening up male hairstyles off screen. So what I'll be doing is that I'll be looking into some other types of hairstyles that I might want to create, or out of pure memory. I'm not really sure right now. So with that one, yeah, find something that you would like to use. Find multiple things that you would like to use. It's not really wise for you to just reference one thing. Because if you just reference one thing, is that you'll be stuck to it. So you need to try and find alternates of it. It's better for you to find different views of it and so on and so forth to kind of make a better hairstyle, or to make it much more convincing as a hairstyle. So with that one, I'll be creating now the basic shape. So for the basic shape, you just have to create one shape. It doesn't really have to look entirely fancy. It just has to look like the general shape of the hair. So like let's say when you're creating a swept back kind of look, then dapat magawa yung swept back kind of look na yun. So sabihin natin if you're gonna create that swept back kind of look na may undercut, probably the basic shape would just be something like this, and that's quite okay. For this one, it is possible for you sometimes if you have a little bit more of a complicated hair, you might want to start by sections first and then create the basic shape, or create the whole shape. O kaya naman create the whole shape first and then divide it by sections. So, I don't know, let's try. Yeah, so for this one, portions of it, I'll be creating sections. And then okay. So, for this one, medyo nag-divide ako. So, you have the entire shape, of course, but the shape has been divided into smaller sections so that I would be able to create more complexity towards my shapes. So, yung next part ko is that I'll be breaking this down even further to add a little bit more sectioning. So, for this one, might want to create one section for this one. So may isa akong section dito. I might want to have another section right here. Okay, so the importance of having different types of sections kasi is that when you're creating hair, and this is one of the common mistakes for a lot of students. So students tend to treat hair as like individual sections. So when they're creating, like let's say, let's try to have a simple shape right here. Sabihin natin for a female. So when they're creating their female, is that what they tend to create is that gagawa sila ng hair strands na ganyan. They would really take a lot of time just creating the hair strands like this, then just create something like this. So what this does is that it doesn't really look convincing. It looks like it's a bunch of lines, on top of someone's head. Whereas if you have like, let's say, more of yung basic shapes natin, so try to have just a normal shape. Kahit na simpleng hairstyle lang yan, just a normal na nakababa lang na hair. Like let's say for your female characters. So with this one, it still looks more like hair than this one actually. This one kind of looks flat. But for this one, it looks like it has a lot more dimension. And this one took me a lot less time compared to the one right here. So if I'm creating a lot more hair strands like this, not only is it a waste of my time, but it is also not as convincing as hair. It's not as appealing as hair compared to something like this. So yeah, it would be much better for you to do it in sections. And since we're talking about an animation perspective, since this is animation 11A, it would be much better for you to think of how you're going to do it when you're animating it, which means you're going to have to draw it over and over again. And you don't really want to draw individual strands over and over again. So that's just a food for thought. Okay, so I have my basic shapes right here. Sorry if it's a little bit messy because when you're creating hair, it tries to be a little bit messier. Actually, this is when you're creating hair, you might want to do a lot of experimentation first before you create it on the actual face. So you might want to do something like what I did a while ago. So just have yung basic shape ng head natin. So it doesn't even have to look like proper proportions. And then kind of create the hair on this figure thing right here. So if you want to create swept back kind of look, you might want to do it first on a mannequin or a dummy, kind of like this one, and try your luck with it. Okay, so the next point that we're going to create is that we're going to now going to render the hair. So for this one, this is gonna take quite a while. One thing that I would like to show you is how the hair is being created. So I would like you to notice how I tend to start. So I usually start off first on the origin of the hair. Of course, one more thing is that I tend to draw in sections. So I would start off with one section first and then move on from that point on, that next point. Second of all is that how the lines are created. So a lot of people who would create hair, pag beginner sila, they would try to create hair is that they would start off at the bottom, then i-connect nila from the bottom going towards the top. That's not really something that I would recommend when you're creating hair. When you're creating hair, you start off first at the top, then bababa ka, and then you're gonna go back towards the top, and then bababa ka ulit. So something like this. So this one actually takes a lot more exercising. I do understand that. However, if you are able to master something like this, you're able to create much more convincing hair compared to something like the previous one. So imagine if you're going to create hair that kind of looks like this. It looks quite unnatural. It actually kind of looks like a bunch of triangles. But if you create something like this, not only naturally magkakaroon ka ng wave towards the creation of your hair, but it looks a lot more natural. So, yeah, that is how you would usually want to create your hair, something like this. So, you always start off towards the origin of the hair, and then you're gonna have to go towards the tip. So, you're essentially just flicking your wrist, actually. So right here, I'm also adding a little bit of lines. So actually, this is supposed to be another step. You have to have, of course, first the rendering of the basic shapes and the sections of your hair. But if you can't but it's also quite possible for you in the middle of it to add like lines like these. So it still makes it look like it's hair, but you don't have to add so much lines that it takes a lot towards your time and energy. Okay, other things that I might want to create is that if you have shorter hair like this, you might want to create like a few loose strands here and there. So I would add probably one right here, erase it so that it's connected. Probably might want to add again another hair strand right around here. Make it look a bit messier, especially if you have shorter hair like this. Also, if you would like to create yung sa may hair scalp natin, you're just creating essentially just zigzag lines to make it look a bit more natural, and try to shade this a little bit for the undercut. Okay, so once you have your hair down, you might want to add a little bit more detailing towards it. So okay. Next part is now we'll be creating or we'll be rendering the face. So for your face, essentially you can just simply trace this. But if you would like to add a little bit more, if you want to add a little bit more detail, you might want to add cheekbones right around here. You might want to create a cleft chin right around here. But that's not really necessary as long as you are able to make sure that um your face is a little bit angular. Hindi naman yung super angular. Like as you can see right here, I'm softening it a little bit, where you can still quite determine if something is within an angle or not. Then for your ears, simply trace that and then probably add a few lines here and there. Probably make this a bit longer if you would like to. And then lastly is yung sa may head net. I mean sa may neck net. So for your neck, you'll be starting off right here kung nasan yung mouth line natin. So from your mouth line, I'll be creating two diagonal lines going towards the center of the circle, and then another line which you will be creating now the neck. So when you're creating your neck, it's a little bit more curved. So may curves sa line. It's not just entirely straight, or it's not super curved compared to that of your more feminine type of look. So if we were to delete everything else, erase everything, it should more or less look like this. Yeah, might want to add this one. All right. So that's how you would create your male face. These are the different proportions that you might want to add. Some guidelines on how you might want to create hair. I do understand that hair is quite subjective. There's a lot of hairstyles even right now with the quick Google search that I've just created off screen. I can see a lot of hairstyles. A lot of them are very different in terms of the construction. Thank you so much, everyone. I apologize for the abrupt ending. I'll see you next week.